of our most popular services here in Minot. It's all coming up this week ahead. Hey everyone, welcome in and thanks for joining me once again on This Week Ahead. Representation matters. The City of Minot is a governmental organization in a democratic republic. The very core of our existence is about representation. We have 7 people from different backgrounds who all meet no less than twice a month to make various decisions on your behalf. You put them there to stand in for you. They're there to represent you. This week ahead will be International Women's Day on Monday, March 8th. This entire month is being celebrated as Women's History Month. Our council is uniquely equipped for this observation. After the June election, this body made history, women's history. They voted unanimously to install 2 females as president and vice president to the council, Lisa Olson and Carrie Evans, respectively. It's the first time by our counts that's ever happened for Minot. We've had female leadership as council president, but never an all-female council leadership. 2 female council members isn't exactly an accurate reflection of our gender ratio here in Minot, but it is a start. We're about 48% female. Our economy is generally male-dominated industries, and our employment at the City of Minot is about 30% female. The work we do is diverse, from office professionals, heavy equipment operators, engineers, accountants, etc., etc. There are departments that are considered to be a little bit more male-oriented. Nationally, for police officers, 15% are female. We're closer to 20%. Less than 10% of our firefighters across the country are female. Here, we have a total of 3. Our entire HR department is run by females. Finance, almost exclusively female. In fact, 5 of our 13 department directors and leaders are women. Based on my analytics, most of you reading this, listening to this, and watching this are female. For some, this message for This Week Ahead really resonates. For others, you may wonder, why am I even talking about this? Well, representation matters. That's why. Females in the workforce, any workforce, are vital for their knowledge and expertise, just like their male counterparts. But the different life experiences that many females have, the different ways they think about things, the different methods that they use, are very important to the overall success of our mission for serving you. This topic kind of reminds me of an article we put out in June of 2018 about our high percentage of female peace officers. The chief of police at that time, Jason Olson, said, quote, from my observations, I think female officers have a tendency to use their ability to de-escalate a situation verbally more than the male counterparts. Olson goes on to say, quote, some male officers may have a tendency to rely on their physicality a little too much, knowing that they can overpower someone if they need to. But female officers, they might assess the situation differently, end quote. Looking at things differently, a different perspective. That's the value in having a good gender balance. The value of having that diversity. Looking at things differently is really why representation matters. All right, I want to really dive into this and bring in someone who has made women's history here in Minot, someone that has a different perspective and brings that to her job in what is traditionally a male-dominated field. The first ever female fire chief in Minot's history, and one of very few in the country. That's Chief Kelly Cronchdommel. Chief, thanks for making time for us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, I want to start by bringing up your background into the conversation. In my opinion, we have a healthy combination of female leadership from the director side within the city. We have Lisa Junt, our HR director, Kelly Hendershot, our city attorney, Janet Anderson, our library director, and our city clerk, Kelly Mentalka. We have females in position of leadership. But your position is unique because of the assumption that firefighting is a male-specific field. How and why did you get into firefighting, and what was it like in the early days of your career?
Well, I got into firefighting kind of kind of unique way. I actually went into law enforcement first. I went to the academy and realized in the academy that law enforcement was not for me. It just didn't fit my makeup. And I had become a volunteer firefighter in my hometown of Fertile, Minnesota, and I still wanted to go into the emergency services. And so I felt that that was my path, and I knew it was going to be a challenge for me. Um, and what was it like when I first got in? It was a challenge. I was hired with the Grand Forks Fire Department. I was one of two females they hired off the same list at the same time, which really actually helped. It kind of took the pressure off of one of us having to be the first, which was good. It was a challenge trying to come in and navigate that world.
So we broke up a little bit, so I want to try this again. So can you explain some of the challenges early in your career that you sort of experienced?
Um, some of the challenges are just fitting in. How do you fit in as a very young female into this um, male dominated profession? Where is your where do your strengths come in? Where do your weaknesses get covered by the rest of the team? Because we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and we all um, kind of help each other as a team. And trying to get trying to feel that way out. And those were some of the biggest challenges. One of the things that I didn't realize was a challenge is feeling like you are part of that team, feeling validated sometimes. And I didn't realize that I had never felt validated until about 12 years into my career when myself and I was a captain at the time, and we pulled somebody out of a building. And it was the first time that I felt like I was truly validated as a female in the fire service that, yeah, I can do that. Because there's always that question sometimes of, do I belong here? Can I do this? And it's very rare for somebody to actually pull somebody out of a building. I mean, it doesn't happen very often. And I happened to, the first time I did that, it was the first time I really felt validated. And it struck me that on how long of my career that I had that question in the back of my mind, am I supposed to be here? You know?
It was like getting over that hump, right? Like, I mean, since that's a rare occasion, but it's something that maybe when you think of firefighters doing it, it's probably the first thing people think of. But being able to accomplish that and getting that doubt maybe in your mind and other people's mind that you can do that was something that was monumental for you, right?
Absolutely.
Now, as you were developing your craft in your career and working from your early parts to where you are now, um, do you think you had any advantages as a female? Not necessarily special opportunities by chance, but because you may have come from a different background, you had a different approach to problems, you thought about things a little bit differently. Did you think there were any advantages as for being a female in your line of work?
I think some of the advantages too from being a female is we do look at the world differently, and having a different perspective. They always say, getting females into the boardroom, for example, we just bring a different dynamic to the boardrooms and giving a different perspective on the world. We see things differently. I see things, from the aspect of being a mom. You just look at things differently. I tend to see things even in disciplinary issues. Why is somebody acting like that? I don't just look at the problem. I look at, what can we do to solve it, and what can we do to help this person and make them a better firefighter.
You made mention to being a mom, and whether you're male or female, as a chief, it's kind of like being a parent to a large family, right? You have now two firefighters, female firefighters that came online. And from my perspective, from what I hear, from what I see, they seemingly fit in quite well. When they came aboard, or when more female firefighters may join in the future, do you need to give them any kind of advanced advice from your experience, or do you need to manage everybody differently?
Everybody gets treated differently. I treat them the way they need to be treated. And I did meet with the females, and it's um, it's one of those things. I have somewhat of a bond with them. I understand where they're at in their career. I don't hold them to any different standard than anybody else. They're held to the same standard from day one. They have done really, really well. You know, they passed all their tests just like every male has, and I can't treat them any differently. But, you know, they know they could come to me for some advice, and I've given them some. Um, because it is a tough role to go into, and each of them are different, you know. Just like the female that I came in with, we were completely different. We had different aspirations for our careers, and you know, you have to treat us differently too.
When you started with the city, now correct me if I'm wrong, late 2015 ish, 2016, when you
Really,
started in early 16, when you started with the city in early 16, um, as the fire chief, what was your first impression with the job, the community? What was one of the first things that came to your mind when you started your gig as the fire chief?
um, the the reason that I chose Minot, and it was the same as I came in, was that it was the same size as the organization I came from. It was in a community about the same size that I came from. Everything seemed to be real parallel. I mean, it was just like, you know, I went from an assistant role basically in one organization, and I took the lead role in another organization that was very similar. So I thought, this is just like coming to work in Grand Forks, but I'm just in a different community. Everything felt the same, which was kind of the biggest thing for me and why I chose to come to Minot. Um, and you know, when you get into it, it's different, right? What I thought was the same, where we were a completely different animal. Being over here, it has opened my eyes to many different ways of doing things. You know, you can cut a hole in the roof many different ways, and we cut it a different way than I was used to in Grand Forks. And trying to get a handle on the differences, the similarities, and it's been really kind of fun. I liked it. It was a real challenge to me to really open my eyes to different things. Being the only outside fire chief was a challenge. And I knew they had a lot of trepidations of me. You know, it's like being that new firefighter coming into an all male organization. As a female, it was the same thing. It was all male, other than the administrative assistant up front. It was all male again, and they're trying to figure me out, and having to call me chief was just an added dynamic. And um, but you know, I think they were ready for that. I think they were ready for an outside fire chief. The community was ready for that. A fresh set of eyes um, is a healthy thing in an organization.
You have climbed the ladder, pun intended, Chief. You started on the ground floor, the Grand Forks Fire Department. You've moved your way up into administrative roles within the department, and then you finally got the fire chief gig here with us, thankfully, for us. You're living in two worlds now, as an executive and still as a firefighter. Unfortunately, they both statistically have low female representation. What do you think can be done to encourage more female firefighters and more female executive leaders?
So if I go back to Grand Forks, there was no other females hired until um, about 15 years into my career. So Tana and I were the only two for 15 years. And it took intentional recruitment. And that's what it takes. It takes intentionally recruiting, helping, um, mentoring, coaching, the whole thing to get more female firefighters. It also requires intentional recruiting and mentoring for getting more females moved up into the ranks. I see it all over, whether it's in law enforcement, where there's no females in the boardrooms, and there's very few, even assistant chiefs or chief officers, even around the country. But it takes intentional mentoring and coaching, and that was one thing that I was given, was intentional help. It's not like they went above and beyond or anything, but they knew I was interested in moving up. They knew that others were too, but you need to help. I mean, if you see somebody, you have to help them go up. And being a female in this world doesn't mean, I mean, in this world, I'm saying firefighting, it just doesn't come easily. It's not like just, it just doesn't flourish. You have to intentionally do it. And females, we have to work extra hard sometimes in this world. And that's okay. But when you see somebody that's willing to go the extra mile, you need to help them. You need to give them what they need in order to prepare themselves for that next level.
Chief, who influenced you the most in your career to get you to this point?
There was quite a few people that helped me along the way. I think the chief officers that I was working under really helped me. They saw something in me, and they helped me. Chief Peter O'Neill from Grand Forks was on the board. He was the deputy chief when we were hired. He pushed to get us hired, and he saw something in me along the way. And I mean, really, all of my chief officers really helped me along the way.
Is there any parting words you have for us, Chief? I appreciate your time, but I want to give you the last chance to make any mention that you think we might have missed.
No, I mean, this is a great career. It isn't for everybody, male or female. But if you want something different, that's, it can be sheer excitement or it can be really boring some days. But it's a great career. It's very rewarding. It's been so rewarding to give back to the community in kind of a different way. And I'd say somebody should, male or female, try it. Give it a shot.
Any job openings? Can people apply now?
We're actually going to be testing in April. So our hiring process is starting actually this month.
Okay, and you can check later this month for any listings for that, minetnd.org/jobs, of course. You give free tours out there. You can give, people are interested. They can call you and they can set something up. Of course, COVID-19 precautions are still in effect right now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So we ask everyone to be respectful for that. Okay, Chief, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your leadership in our organization. Thanks for keeping your men and women over there sharp to give us a little peace of mind just in case that spark turns into a blaze and anything else happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, moving on to our COVID corner. This is the part where I outline testing and vaccine progress to date here in our community. At this past week's City Council meeting, Director of 1st District Health, Lisa Clute, told our City Council that more vaccines are expected very soon.
I think it will not be long before we have actually more vaccine than what we have people arms to vaccinate.
A day later, 1st District announced it was moving on to the next priority group of the vaccine tier 1B. That's childcare, providers, and school staff. Things seem to be accelerating. Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, and Pfizer all have thousands of doses here in North Dakota, and more are expected to be coming. If you are among the qualified individuals for that next priority group, for that tier 1B, which is 65 and older, childcare providers, school teachers and staff, or anyone with two medical conditions that's 16 to 60 or 18 to 64, you can contact your primary care physician or 1st District to set up an appointment. According to state data, North Dakota has about a 20% first dose coverage and 11% second dose coverage. Almost 90% of our vaccines have been administered, which ranks us second in the country behind only New Mexico. Of course, a vaccine doesn't prevent the transmission of the virus, but it does help those who get it fight off the virus or even avoid it altogether. To help limit the transmission until we can create that projected herd immunity of 70%, testing is still a key factor. That's why we're continuing our efforts at Fire Station 1 3 days a week with BinaxNOW Now rapid COVID-19 screening. The hours for that, Monday 8 to 2, Thursday 2 to 7, and Saturdays 10 to 2. Now you need to save the date. We are less than 2 months away from one of our most popular events. That's Cleanup Week. May 3rd through the 7th will be your no-holds-bar chance to purge all that junk from your home and leave it on the curb for collection. This service is only for those with city sanitation services. Now, you want to be sure that you know your collection date. They collect just 4 days out of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Make sure you go to minotnd.org. You can find your collection, the collection date map there, and make sure that you write that down and save that date. On Monday, 7th and 8th will be the hazardous household waste and e-waste collection as well. Paint, stains, varnishes, propane tanks, etc., all accepted at Public Works from 8 to 5. You can also bring out old electronics, TVs, computers, printers, what have you. Those will be there and recycled as well. I want to thank you once again for joining me on This Week Ahead. If you haven't yet, be sure to follow us on all your favorite social media pages throughout the week to keep up to date on everything that we're doing as a city to help serve you. And of course, if you have any questions for us that we can answer on this or even on social media, send us that at any time. You could visit minotnd.org/mailbag, submit a question that way, or you could just email us. It's info@minotnd.org. Be sure to sign up for our other newsletter as well. It's the latest that we put out for the city of Minot. It comes out every 2 weeks. Most recent outlined the the current progress and the next step for the City Hall renovations that was just acquired and planned on moving on to an architectural consultant from City Council. You can read that more. Sign up for the newsletter at minotnd.org/latest. Download and rate our podcast as well on all of your favorite podcast apps. That's This Week Ahead. And thanks for joining me. Enjoy This Week Ahead.